there's been a lot of discussion in Western media recently about whether Israel committed war crimes in Gaza during its latest assault on Gaza, Operation Guardian of the Walls, which lasted 11 days and which left over 250 Palestinians dead, including 66 children. But amazingly, what a lot of this discussion is left out are direct quotes from Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz, who was actually in charge of the operation in Gaza. So, for example, on the 24th of April, which was just 2 weeks prior to the Israeli assault on Gaza, Benny Gantz was quoted in the Jerusalem Post as stating that if quiet is not kept in Gaza, Gaza will be severely hit in its economy, security, and from the civilian perspective. So Benny Gantz was openly stating that if Gaza was not kept quiet, that if it continued to resist the Israeli occupation, then Israel would target Gaza's civilian population. He said it would be hit in its economy, security, and from the civilian perspective, basically saying Gaza in its entirety would be attacked by Israel. That was just 2 weeks prior to the Israeli assault on Gaza. And then actually during the Israeli assault on Gaza, on the 14th of May, Benny Gantz was quoted in Salon as stating, "If citizens of Israel have to sleep in shelters, then Gaza will burn." Again, a very open admission that Israel was committing war crimes in Gaza. He stated, "Gaza will burn," meaning the entire Gazan population and Gaza's infrastructure were the target of the Israeli assault. And it's important to bear in mind that 70% of Gaza's population are refugees and descendants of refugees from the Nakba in 1948, which was when 90% of Palestinians were expelled from the area that became Israel. And Human Rights Watch recently called what happened in 1948 to the Palestinians a crime against humanity. So 70% of Gaza's population are refugees and descendants of refugees from that crime against humanity. 51% of Gaza's population are children. And Gaza's been under an illegal Israeli blockade since 2006, which Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the UN Human Rights Council have recognised to be illegal collective punishment of Gaza's population. Human Rights Watch called it a crime against humanity. So when you're thinking about Gaza, it's important to bear in mind 70% refugees, 51% children, and under an illegal Israeli blockade since 2006, which has led to a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza whereby 97% of the water is unfit for human consumption, 80% of the population is dependent on humanitarian aid. So that's Gaza, and Benny Gantz stated, "If citizens of Israel have to sleep in shelters, then Gaza will burn," saying that the entire population of Gaza is the target. Then a few days later, on the 18th of May, Benny Gantz was quoted, this time in the Times of Israel, as stating, "No person, area, or neighbourhood in Gaza is immune. We have thousands more attack targets that are only further accumulating." So this is very close to genocidal rhetoric, if not actual genocidal rhetoric. He said, "No person, area, or neighbourhood in Gaza is immune," meaning every single human being in Gaza, every man, woman, and child, every neighbourhood in Gaza is a target for us, which is, as I said, genocidal rhetoric. And for the next quote, this is from an Israeli pilot who participated in the bombing of Gaza, and he was interviewed by Israel's Channel 12 along with other Israeli pilots who participated in the bombing of Gaza. It's important to bear in mind here that 9 high-rise civilian towers in Gaza were completely leveled by Israel. Hundreds of Palestinian families were made homeless because of this, because these towers contained apartments where hundreds of Palestinian families lived, and as a result of these towers being destroyed, hundreds of families were made homeless. They have nowhere to live now, including very young children. And this Israeli pilot was interviewed by Israel's Channel 12, and he stated the following: "I went on a mission to carry out airstrikes with a feeling that destroying the towers is a way to vent frustration over what is happening to us and over success of the groups in Gaza in kicking us. We failed to stop the rocket fire and to harm the leadership of these groups, so we destroyed the towers." So he's openly saying in the army, we destroyed these civilian towers because we were frustrated over our failure to achieve any of our strategic goals in Gaza. So we attacked these towers, leveled them, made hundreds of families homeless as a way to vent our frustration, which is again a very clear admission that Israel committed war crimes in Gaza, that it leveled these towers, these civilian towers, deliberately attacked these towers, brought them down, made hundreds of people homeless, and the pilots did it in order to vent their frustration, which is again a war crime. And it's important to note that the International Criminal Court is currently investigating alleged Israeli war crimes in the occupied territory. So I hope they take into account these quotes, these direct quotes from Benny Gantz, and from this Israeli pilot, because they're very clear admissions that Israel was in fact targeting Gaza's civilian population and civilian infrastructure.